Right, I'm trying something else. Having audio issues here. Love it, don't you? How's that? Totally different audio, but should be coming through loud and clear. Well, it should be, because I can see bouncing. I can see bouncing, so it should definitely be. It just isn't going to sound quite like me. No, I'm not on mute, Renee. Really? Really? No. I've just got audio issues. Yes, it is now, but it's not the correct microphone mic. So I'm pondering. Right, I know what I'm going to do. Let me see if it's this, which I can turn off and then get back to the proper audio. Right, so let's do that. I'm going to try the proper microphone again, so hold on. Is that any better? That looks much better to me. Well, it sounds better, but I listen to audio visually. So, am I coming through? I think it's fine. Right. Sounds like I'm shouting in a tin can. Oh no, that's not good. Right, how's that? Is that better? Excellent. Right. Sorry about that. Okay, 4 minutes in, but now we have audio. There you go. Got to love the tech. Right, we're back. Everything's fine. I will not be editing that out. I will put it in the timings. The reason I won't edit it out is, not even got started now, I'm giving you stories. Do you remember when I did Pixelmator Pro and it was fabulous and people loved it? Yeah, and YouTube said, why don't you just trim the beginning and the end? And I did and lost 15 minutes. So that's why I won't be doing it. Just use the timings. Right, let's get on with it. Yes, things are misbehaving already, but it's fine. We're back. Right, let me check that everything is just about right, because you should be seeing that, not the rest of it. Right, okay. Hello and welcome. Let's pretend the last 5 minutes didn't happen and just start again. So I did say hello to each and every one of them in the chat, didn't I? I even named names, but now I can't remember everybody, so I'm just going to have to do a global hello. I also said hello if you're not in the chat and you're just listening, or you're watching later, so hello. Right, today we have a recipe layout. Right, first things first, I've had questions. I don't lay out recipes, that's fine. It's just an example, it's just demo data. The principles will apply to everything and anything that you do. Right, we're broadcasting in 1080p. Make sure you are receiving in 1080p. To do that, there is a flash in the lower right-hand corner underneath the video. Next to that, you will find the like button. We like the like button, and so does YouTube. So hit that like button either now, if you're confident, or later when you've learnt something. Right, if you've never heard of me, I'm Elaine Giles, long-time Affinity user. Since the original Affinity designer was in beta all those years ago, 2014. And I've used the Affinity apps every day since then. And now, of course, it's all rolled into one. Everything that we look at today, absolutely everything, works exactly the same on Windows as it does on the Mac. And yes, I'm demonstrating on a Mac, but the apps are identical. No, there is not an iPad version available for this consolidated application yet, but every day we're getting closer to it. They have said 2026, but they've not said when in 2026, so fingers crossed. Right, this is what we're looking at today. So we are starting completely from scratch with an initial document setup. I'm going to give you some answers to questions that you don't know have even been asked yet in terms of setting up a document. Then I'm creating backgrounds. I'm creating 2 of them. If you've seen the preview of the layout, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about in terms of 2 backgrounds. If not, I'll show it you shortly. Then we're working with images. We've got 4 images, I think, and each one is going to need a different treatment. Then we're going to talk briefly about text styles, but it's not a session dedicated in terms of, mastering text styles or everything you need to know. We're just going to talk about text styles, and I will create some and edit some. I will also show you the style tree for this document. And Mike this week thought that the style tree was something inside Affinity, but it's not, is it? You've learnt that now. The style tree is my name for how styles interact with each other. But I visualized it this time so you can actually see it. Then I'll be converting Markdown to style text with some regex, and then we'll pull it all together and end up with a full layout. There will then be the Q&A. Q&A, put your questions in as we go. Mike will collect them, ready for the Q&A at the end. If you can remember, please put a Q at the beginning, and it'll make it a little bit easier for us to work out exactly what you're referring to if you give us a little bit of context as well. So if you're talking about a specific dialogue box, tell me which one. Right, we love to read the chat, so please keep it friendly in there. I am not affiliated with Canva, nor Affinity, never have been. I've been a customer of both, and that is it. Not trying to sell you anything, certainly not from either of them. Right, so today, recipe layout. This is what we'll be creating, apart from the fact I put the cover of the magazine over some of the text. But other than that, when I said 2 backgrounds, we are going to be creating 2 completely different backgrounds, one for the left-hand side and one for the right-hand side. The 4 images I mentioned are the ones of the sausage rolls, each one needing something different, and there's the actual recipe itself. So let's head off and have a look. Let's make sure that you can see my screen, which I think you can. I think we've already been there, haven't we? Right, let's get rid of the audio because that's been so much fun today so far, and head off into here. So the question that you haven't yet asked, or that you might be contemplating, came up this week when someone was talking about needing to get something printed out. At this stage, the document was finished, and now the printer wants a bleed on it, and there is no bleed. So at the point that you're creating a file, you probably have some idea of where it's going, what you're outputting to, and what size you need it, and things like that. But everything can be changed later. If you need to add a bleed later, you can. If you need to add margins later, you can. So that makes it difficult for people at this stage to think, well, should I go with what I think I'm going to do, or is there a best practice? Now, when I created the working copy of this, which I can show you, here it is. So that is my layout. You will notice that there is no bleed on this. There are margins, there is a front cover, and there is some additional pages. There is the front cover. And this is the layout that we're actually creating, and there is no bleed on it. Because I know the output is going to be digital, and therefore I don't really need a bleed on it. But if you ended up in the same situation as this person, where down the line they've designed it and it looks perfect, it creates a perfect PDF, but now they need a bleed, that gives you a lot more work. While it's easy to turn a bleed on, which is very straightforward, just go to the document setup and go down to bleed and turn it on, and then give it a value, so 3mm there. It's that simple to create a bleed. It's shown with the lavender border on it, but here's the problem. The extra work that's involved is not actually adding the bleed. That's easy. If we look at these pages, the bleed is sat there ready and waiting. The problem in terms of the amount of work to do is that now, to utilise the bleed, you're going to need to select background elements and stretch them out. And notice I click not selecting it. This is because there's a lot of layers already in here and some of them are locked. So it would give you a lot more work to put the content into the bleed after the event. Because of that, I'm going to come out of there, go back into our document here. Even though I'm thinking at the moment I'm not going to need a bleed, I'm going to create one. It doesn't matter that it's there. It doesn't mean that I have to make any changes to the physical file when I come to output digital, which I will be able to show you. So let's put on margins and let's put on a bleed. The margins are going to be 10 except for the bottom, which is 15. So I'm going to click the link after I've added the 10 and just change the bottom one to 15. The bleed is going to be 3 all the way around, which is fairly standard. Now the rest of it, you may think, well, if you've added a bleed, then you probably want the CMYK. Because it's a demonstration, I'm going to leave it at RGB, but I could change it to CMYK later for printed output, and I wouldn't need to make any changes to the document. So just so the images look correct during this demonstration, I'm leaving it at RGB, but you could change all of that. So this is A4, it is 300 dpi, And I've got my margins and I've got my bleed. What else do I need? At this stage, I could just create the document. But I know that I'm going to be using spreads. So in the multi-page option here, I'm going to make sure that facing pages is turned on. And I'm going to make it with 8 pages. And that is exactly how I created the other one, except the one that I've already done, except for the bleed. So I'm going to create that document. This is where our front cover would go. And pages 2 and 3 is where I will be creating or recreating this layout. So that is our initial document, except for one thing, which is I'm going to create a baseline grid for this. So I'm going to add a baseline grid. Now, the idea of a baseline grid is that the text lines up properly between columns, between pages, between however you set it. So I'm just adding this baseline grid. If you are making a document for yourself or whatever, and you're just not confident in relation to a baseline grid, then just leave it turned off. I am going to turn it on, and I'm going to make it quite tiny at 4 points because I know that 4 points works for my layout. I will show you what that looks like. It looks like that. And as you change it, so the default was 14. Each of these lines is showing you where the text will line up to. It's particularly important in relation to text that's in columns. But that is what it looks like. I personally can't really work with it turned on. Its display in Affinity is quite in your face, and I definitely do not need to be seeing that while I'm working. So I will just turn it off. I'm going to drag that out of the way so it's on my other screen in case I need to get back into it quickly. Right, so at that point we have RGB, A4, 8 pages, 10, 10, 10 and 15 for the margins, 3 for the bleed, a baseline grid. We are almost ready to go. At this stage, even though I've got no content, I'd be tempted to save it and put it in my folder for today. And we will have this. We'll call it recipe. There we go. Now, the only reason that I'm saving that, I've had problems ever since Affinity came out, this combined application, in terms of file corruption. So I'm making sure I've saved it as I go along. Only yesterday, I embedded a file. I edited the embedded file, went back to the original, and it had nuked it. So do be careful when you're working. Save often, save frequently. Right, so that's the initial document set up. The next thing I'm going to do is work on the left-hand side here. And if you can remember what it looked like, the left-hand side had a greyish background. To do that and to get it positioned correctly, I'm going to use a picture frame. Now, because I added a bleed, this is what I did last time. I put that frame in the working area, but now I have a bleed, and I'm going to extend that frame into that area there. So it is extended into the bleed all over the place, although it's not lining up properly. What are you doing? There we go. Getting there, aren't we? Right, that's correct. So the cross is telling us it's ready to have an image added to it. And I have an image that is the background. So I'm going to drag and drop that into there. And that will do. That is the background sorted out. At that point, I would lock that because I need to add other images and other content to this. And I don't want to be moving things. So I'm going to lock that in place. Right, the next thing was there was sausages, sort of around that area there, around here. So that's what I'll do next. So I will create another text frame and draw that into place there. It doesn't need to be 100%. I can move this later, but I would probably have it around here, I think. It's going to depend on the text that I have, but there is my frame. And in there, I'm going to put a stock image of what I'm saying is sausage rolls. Now you can see what's happened here. This background that I added first was part of this image, and I extracted it and scaled it and created a background. You can see with this, we've got problems. The sausage rolls are hanging out of the frame. It looks darker. The pattern doesn't quite match. You can definitely see that that's just parked on top of it. Right, first thing is, Because it's picture frame, I can move it, so I can bring these back into frame. And I've also got the slider at the bottom where I can scale it. So let's scale that up a bit. And let's move it into position. Now, no matter how much manoeuvring I do with this, it's still going to look like it's just been parked on the top of it, because we have some drop shadow on it. Because of that drop shadow, I want to make sure that the drop shadow isn't strongly cut off at the corner. So I'm still scaling and moving at this stage, just making sure that it is in the frame. Right, like that. Now, at the moment, I'm working in Layout Studio, which is the equivalent of the old Affinity publisher. But on this, I want to do some editing. For that, it's probably easier to make sure I select it and switch to the pixel persona. Just really because the tools are to hand if I do that. So going into the pixel persona, I need to add a mask to this image. We want this image to look like it's part of the background image, not be just stuck on top of it. For that, I'm going to put a mask on it, and then I'm going to get the brush tool. And with the brush tool selected and made a little bit bigger, I'll zoom in so we can see it a little bit better. I want to keep the shadow. I don't really want to make a selection of the sausage roll and have it very harsh at the edge. What I do want is the edge here just erasing, just wiping away, which is what I'm doing with this brush tool. I'm going to leave some shadow on it. I just want it to look like it matches. So it's the areas at the edge that I want to get rid of. And I'm using a very soft brush on that just to get round here. Now this bit over here, I'm going to make the brush smaller so I can get into much closer and make sure that I don't have a straight edge on that. And that's not looking bad at all. That's looking like it could match. So that's simple to do that. And then I'm going to move back into my Layout Studio. Right, at that point, with that sausage roll, I think it might need to be a little bit bigger. But if it does, we'll take care of that. Right. So in here in my picture frame now, you can see I've got the image and I've got the mask that I've created. I'm going to click on the top and that restricts it to the picture frame, so I can fold that up, and this is what I've added there. At that point, I'm going to lock that. May need to resize it later, but for the moment, that is that bit dealt with. Now, because both of those images are the background, I do take the time and rename these, but it's a demo, so I'll leave it alone. But I will group them, so select them and Command and G or Control and G, and I will name that one background. And I should probably put background on the left, but we'll just leave it background at the moment. Right, so that is that taken care of. Now, instead of locking these two, it might be better for your workflow if you just lock that background. That way you can quickly get in and edit these and not have to unlock multiple things. But either way, that's locked. I'm clicking and dragging and I'm not disturbing anything. Right, so that is our background left taken care of. Guess what's next? Background right. Now, it's exactly the same process. What I'm going to do here is get a picture frame. And this time, instead of stretching it into the bleed, I'm going to draw it straight from the bleed all the way down there. So it is perfectly positioned. At that point, I need the image that's going in it. And the image that's going in it is just a background. So I'm going to drag and drop just one image like that. At that point, I could name that. I could lock that. I'm going to need to do more with that later, because if you can remember what the original looked like, it was a bit darker than that. In fact, I can do half of that now, which is, what I would do with that is duplicate it, so Command and J. Now at that stage, I've just got a second copy of it. There is no interaction between the two of them, and it hasn't made it any darker. Just duplicating stuff on top of itself doesn't make it darker, but changing the blend mode does. So if I go into the blend modes, if you want something darker, it is this collection here. darken, multiply, colour burn. If you want it lighter, then it's this group here. And then you've got more esoteric ones further on. With this one, I'm going to multiply it. Then that means that these two layers can be grouped, Command and G, and this will also be the background, but obviously one is background right and one is background left. Now I can tell the difference because of the colours, but good practice, make sure we do that. And then we can lock it. So we now have the background on the right and the background on the left. That's painless so far, isn't it? Right, let's get that centred. Okay. Now, at that point, I need to start laying out the images. Now, it's up to you what you do next. You could put the text frames on. You could add the images later. You could do any other kind of magic work as well if you wanted. But let's stick with just the images and get the images almost in the correct place. So, there were 4 images. Now, the first one we've already done, which was part of the background. So it's in position, it's been masked, and it's been locked. If we need to make any changes to that in terms of scaling it or anything else, we can unlock it and do that. But the next one I'm going to do is the sausage rolls. There are 3 other images that need to go on here. So first one is the sausage rolls. So I have 3 stock images. Here they are. That one is going in the bottom right-hand corner. That one is going on the right-hand page and is a variation of the cover of the magazine. And this one is going on the left-hand page. So those are the images. You may be tempted just to drag and drop them. Don't do that, because if you do, they will arrive huge. So if I drag and drop that in, it's thinking about it, then it starts mithering me about whether I still want them embedded. I don't want to link it, just add the file. But it's very large. And yes, I can scale it down and do all of those things. And if you've been with me before when we've looked at images, you know that that is not the best way to do it. So I'm going to delete that and add a picture frame. Now, this is useful in a couple of ways. When I'm making a document and I know I'm going to have lots of images in it, and I've got my text, I will place my text and then I'll create image placeholders and I'll add all of the images in one sequence later. But at this stage, even if I don't have the image, I can still size this. So, for example, there is my frame. Down in my transform panel, I have an X coordinate, a Y coordinate, and a width and height for this. I happen to know precisely where this needs to be. It needs to be at 100 mil, size-wise, position-wise, it needs to be 100 millimetres by 190. And position-wise, here, no, hang on, that's its position. I'll get this right, yeah. That's its position. So 100 millimetres in and 190 millimetres in. The size of it needs to be 105 by 66. It also was rotated. So in my rotation, I happen to know that the rotation for this is minus 3.5. If I didn't know that, if I was eyeballing it, I don't have to type in. I can just use this and rotate it. If I do know, which I happen to know, then I can type it in. Right, everything at that point is almost correct. Apart from that should be 190. And we're sorted. So I'm going to make sure that my ratio, just in case I wanted to resize it, is locked. And I'm almost good to go with that. But it had a stroke on it as well. The stroke it had on it was quite dark because it's on the light half of the layout. So I will add a stroke from the stroke panel. And the stroke in there needed to be 3, I do believe. Colour-wise, I'm just going to work with a very dark brown, which it actually looks like it's added. Although that could be black, but it doesn't matter, it's a demo. Whatever colour you need, put that on there. Right, that is now ready to have the image added to it. So exactly the same image that I added before, only this time I'm dragging and dropping it into there. And that is sorted. Right, the next one is the sausage rolls and the dip, and that one is placed on the right-hand side. So I will add another picture frame. Just eyeball it, it doesn't matter. And it put that behind it, which is why I can't see it. So I'm going to make sure it's over the top of that. This could probably do with being over the top of that as well. Right, you can just about see that there. Now, because I've created the one on the left first, on the right-hand side, it has added a border to it, and it's a dark border. I do want a 3-point stroke on it, but I want it white. So in my swatches here, this is the colour of the stroke, and I will just change that to white so we can see it. Size-wise, position first, it needs to be, oh, I was very close with that, 305. And let's put that in. That was fractional. And the Y coordinate is 50. The size of it is 110 by 72.4. If you're wondering why, but that doesn't look right at all, does it, size-wise? What's happening here? 305, 50. Oh, you're lying to me. Something's gone wrong there because it's hanging off the screen. So I must have got the size of that wrong. Let's bring that in a bit. Sort of around there. And it also needed -3 on the rotation. Right, the size of it, 105 by whatever it was, 110 by 72, I think. Is that the right one here? Let's try that one. Right, 110 by 72.4. I'll move it in if need be. Right. The size of it was in relation to the original photo. So I wouldn't normally, with this, I will have this right. There we go. Right. I wouldn't normally be that precise if I were typing it, but I happen to know that the image needs it that size, or I will lose part of it, or it will be skewed. So I'm going to give this one more go to get it in the right place. Now I think it's the right size. Excellent. Right, excellent. Now, then I need to add the image. So this one was this one here. And we've got the image in place. The last image is in the lower right-hand corner. And that needs to be put in position, and it needs to be masked as well. I don't think I made a note of the size of this, so we'll just go with it and scale it back later. Now, again, this one has taken on the look of the last one that I created, which had a white border on it. So if you remember, the one with the dip initially was brown or black because it had picked it up from the one on the left. And that is what will keep happening here. Now, this one doesn't need a border at all. So in the stroke, I can just go and turn the stroke off. It does, however, need the image. So let's add the image to it. Drag and drop that in. Position-wise, not great. So let's go in here and have a look at it. Right, I will position it like that. Now, this one has got more problems in terms of trying to get it to look right rather than just parked on the top of it than our sausages did, because they did have a background that was similar. Similar enough we could just soften the edge. We can pretty much do the same with that. So just to rinse and repeat what we did with the one on the left, I'm switching to the pixel persona because I'm going to get the brush and I'm going to add a mask to it. And then in here, I'm going to start masking it. Now, I'm increasing the size of the brush using the square bracket keys. So the right square bracket key makes it bigger and the left one makes it smaller. If you are coming from Photoshop, it's exactly the same. And then what I'm going to do is start softening that edge so it looks like it's blending in better. And again, I've got the brush quite soft. I've not got it at 100% because I just want it to blend in quite nicely. Like that. You can take that as far as you want. It's a demo. That's enough. Right. You may want to spend more time on that. I'm not going to waste time on that. That is the principle of what you're doing, and those are all of the images. So I'm going to switch back to the layout view. Now, probably it is worth in here naming these. They're obviously all sausage rolls, etc. But they are, as far as I'm concerned, in the correct locations. So do take the time and name these things. But at this point, I can, in here, lock these. So I can select more than one and lock them. Right. This point, the next step is the text frames. Just so we're not working around all of these and having problems, I'm going to turn off all of these. Right? So don't need to see them. What we need to see is that, and now I'm working on the text. So the first thing I need to do is to create some text frames. How many text frames do I need? Well, I need 3. I need one for the title, which is on the left. I then need the left text frame, and I need the right text frame, the text frame on the right-hand side. Right, let's start with the title. So I'm going in here and putting a title, and it was about there, I think, and we had some text that needed to go in it. Now, I do know with this that position-wise, it needs to be at the junction of the margins, which is 10 millimetres in, both sides. Size-wise, I'm going to make it 120 by 105. So that is what I'm working towards. The text that needs to be in it, well, that's going to come from the recipe. And the recipe that I have is here, so I will show you that. That's the text that we will be working with. There's a few things to note about this text when we come to add it in, but at the moment I just need that, which is the article title or recipe title at the top. And that needs to go in here. Now, looks-wise, it can look however you want. This is another question that I got this week, which I haven't answered yet, but I will. Right, it can look however you want it to look. Or you could style it with a text style, and then it would look like its brethren. So if I styled this, in my style tree here, I have a heading 1. I could apply a heading 1 to it. It doesn't look anything like right. In fact, it's probably worse than you imagine, because if I do that, it's actually centered as well. That's definitely not what I want. But just because you want a heading to look a certain way doesn't mean that you get away with not applying a text style. Because at some point, this recipe is going to go into a magazine or a cookery book. And that is going to, or you are going to need to generate a table of contents. And if you didn't style it with a style, your table of contents will be missing the sausage roll recipe. So even though I don't want it to look anything like that, my starting point is to add a text style. And that would mean if I created a table of contents, boom, my sausage rolls would be there. It's that simple. Want proof of that? Let's go and get the text frame. Let's go and insert, where are we? Table of contents, insert table of contents. There's the sausage rolls. So that's the proof of the pudding. Right. Go back to our pages. It's a heading 1. Looks nothing like we want it to look though. So it needs to be left aligned. It needs to be a different font. And that font was, I'll use my recents for it. It was that one. And it was much bigger. So let's try 80. Too big. Let's try 72. Getting there. So I just move this down until it fits. And that fits. Now, at that point, you may be thinking, oh, but now it's not a heading anymore. It's still a heading. Proof that it is still a heading. If we go back to the page with the table of contents on it, and in the table of contents panel, we update that, it's still there. It just looks completely different. You have an option at this point. How do you know that that is a heading 1? In your text styles panel, the heading 1 is lit up in blue. But you look at it and it doesn't look like any of your other heading 1s. That's because it has applied to it formatting. So if I click away, we see the heading 1 listed, and up here it says heading 1. If I click in this text, it's still got heading 1 applied, but this looks different. There is a plus sign next to it and a ... What that is telling you is you applied a heading 1 and then you made it look different. And this little disclosure triangle will tell you what changes you made to it. At this point, you have a decision to make. Are all your recipes going to use this style of Kumingos, 68 points, and left aligned? If all your headings are, then you right-click on the style and you update heading 1. And then all your heading 1s will match. Right, your second option, leave it alone. It's not broken. You only want that heading for here, and you're never going to use it in this document again. In which case, don't do anything. Third option, you will want to use this again, but you also need other headings, other heading 1s, that look different, or look like the original style for heading 1. In which case, make a new style based on this and call it heading 1, followed by some kind of distinction that distinguishes it from a plain heading 1. Those are your 3 options with it. We're only making one layout here. Let's leave it alone. If this was a demonstration of text styles, for which, coming soon, I would explain in more detail and I would go through the 3 options. But that is good enough for now. The next text frame we need is in here, and we need it from the margin here. It needs to be a certain height to fit all of the text in. And down here, this is where we get to measure it. So it's 190 wide, which is correct. An A4 page is 210 millimeters with 2 10mm margins, which leaves 190 between the 2 margins. Height-wise, I was quite close. It needs to be 130. No, hang on. It does not need to be 130. This needs to be 130. I was almost right with that. And then I'll put it into place. So that is the first text frame. The next text frame needs to be on the right-hand page. So draw out another one. This one needs to fill the entire area between the margins. Now, notice something else has happened at this point, and this will probably drive you insane as it does. I created this, then I created this one. But which one did I create first? Oh, I created this one. And the style that is applied to that is a heading 1, which is why when I created the second one, it has applied a heading 1 style to it. It's telling you that at the top, it's telling you that here, and you can see it with your own eyes. That is just the way it works. You've seen it already with the picture frame, and it's doing the same with the text frame. This is increasingly annoying when you're working with something like the front cover and you've made some flashy, splashy text, and all of a sudden you've got 300-point Zapfino font in here and you can't see a thing. So just something to be aware of, that it will always use the last text style, which isn't really what I want. I probably want this to be body style, I would have thought. So I'll apply the body style. Right, over here it's done exactly the same. So let's apply the body style to that as well. But this one had multiple columns. And to do that, I'm actually in the text frame with the text frame tool, which means that up here, all of this is to do with the text formatting. And within there, we have the columns. So I'm just going to set that to 2. The default gap between them, the gutter, is 8.5. You can change that if you want, but it works quite nicely at 8.5. So I'm going to leave that. And now we are ready to work with the text. Now we do actually have the text. You're aware of that. So let's get rid of this and let's bring Sublime back, which is a text editor, which is also cross-platform. I think it's free for personal use as well, but I bought it. But it's very expensive. But if it's for personal use, it's free, I believe. Right, so that was our title. This is the steps of the recipe. Now, let me know in the chat if you understand Markdown. That would be interesting. I'll get a yes or no from Mike eventually. So put it in the chat. Are you familiar with Markdown? Because that is the format that this is in. Now, Markdown, I have talked about it. I don't think I've ever actually fully explained it. But Markdown is a text format that allows you to use symbols to represent what the text is. So this ingredients here has an identifier of 2 hash signs, which means that should be a level 2 heading. The gluten-free pastry, that's a level 3. And as you can see, the filling is a 3, the finish is a 3, method is a 2. And then we've got 5 steps. They are all level 3s. The serving and storage is a level 2, and we've got a little thing at the bottom here that says it's a level 3. We could leave it like that, but we're going to format it properly. The only other thing in here, there's 2 other elements to think about, which is these items, we need to be a bulleted list when we get it inside Affinity. And we've got these that are bright pink, which are indicating that they're bold. So if you want to make something bold in Markdown, it's star star at the beginning and star star at the end. Now, unfortunately, and I do wish that they would fix this, you can't just copy that and paste it into Affinity, and Affinity understand Markdown. It's monolingual. It doesn't understand Markdown at all. But that doesn't mean that we can't use it. So, things to think about in here. This was a level 1 heading, a level 2, a level 3, bulleted lists, and some things are bold. So what I'm going to do is select everything apart from the title, which we already have in there, and copy it. A bit of a mixture. Some of you know Markdown, some of you don't. It's all right, you'll be fine by the end, whether you know it or not. Right, so in my text frame here, I'm going to paste that text in. So we've pasted it in. Right, we've got multiple issues at this point. Right, for a start, we've got overflowing text, which is what the eyeball is telling us. So this little symbol here is saying you've got overflowing text. And there's the triangle, which will let us flow that text into other places. But before I flow it anywhere, I'm going to show you that if I click the eyeball, it actually shows you the overflowing text. And you can see it heading off into the distance here. It doesn't appear on that page, but that's because this frame is just showing you the overflow on the page that you are on. It is actually just there. Right, I don't really need to see the overflow. What I need is for the overflow of this frame to flow into this frame. And it doesn't matter that this left-hand frame has 1 column and the right-hand frame has 2, doesn't matter. What we need to do is go into the first frame, click on the arrow, which will load the text into the cursor. Now, you might be thinking, well, that's blue. That means it's selected. That one is selected. That one's selected now. But this one has a cross on it, and that's because you can't link a text frame to itself. So it's not broken. You just can't link a text frame to itself. But you can link it to anywhere else. So I'm going to click once, and it's going to take the overflow from the left and flow it into the right. Now, at this point, I've already done something that you may not have done at this point. In which case, I need to explain what I've done, which is, I already, because when we created it, it applied a heading 1 to it, I said I probably want that to be body. If you didn't do that, or you didn't need to do that, at this point, you need to stop and look at your content. Now, we know this is going to be a heading 2, and this is going to be a 3, and this is going to be bulleted lists, and somewhere in here, like here, we want some bold applying. But what about this paragraph? What about this paragraph? They need to be body text. You do not want to have to go and manually apply the body text format after you've put all of the headings in. Madness lies that way, because this is going to be body, this is body, this is body, this is body, and so is this. But if you have headings in there, you can't do what I'm about to do, which is work out which is the default style, which of that text is going to be formatted for the majority. and Command and A, Control and A on Windows, and go and apply it. So for instance, it would have come in looking like that, and I would have said the default for this is body. And that's it. We now have that applied. What that looks like is not what we need, but the style itself is there and it's applied. So once we've got all of this text formatted so it doesn't look like Markdown, we can then start concentrating on what the text actually looks like in terms of styles. But we have one more thing to do at this point, which is before we start processing it, and we have to do this manually, there is no translator on the way in for Markdown, we need to make sure we've got everything we need for it to work. Now I'm going to go into the Find and Replace dialog. This is where the magic happens. Right, the thing to do in here when you are manually processing text is make sure that you have available already everything that you need. Look at your text. What is the lowest level of heading that's available? And Markdown goes up to 6 levels, but we've only gone as far as 3. But we do need to replace the level 2 headings and the level 3 headings. Should we start with 2 or should we start with 3? And I know it's tempting to start at the top with, well, I'll go with 1 and then 2 and all the way to 6. Don't do that. Because if I do a search and replace for that, which is 2 hash signs and a space, guess what? It's going to replace that as well. And at that point, we've broken it. So don't do that. All you need to remember is the heading with the most hashes is the one that you change first, which in our case is a 3. And this is how you do it. You go into the Find dialog and you put in hash, 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 and a space. And then you need to replace that. But replace it with what? Well, we don't actually want to see the hashes, but we do need the text formatted. So in our replace with, we're not actually replacing the text yet. What we're going to do is apply a style, which is a paragraph style. And oh, here's the problem. How can we apply a heading 3? We can't, is the short answer, because we haven't got one. So when I said you need to look at your document and work out that you've got everything you need, this is why. Can't replace it with something that doesn't exist. These styles that you see here are the default styles. I have not changed the overall behaviour of Affinity, which you can do, which I will explain in the Mastering Textile session. But you can customise all of these. You can change them if you want, and you can add your own. But to make it so you can follow along with this example, I've not changed anything. Those are the defaults, and there is no heading 3. But if we look across here, fairly simple to do that. Right, let's take the heading 2 and let's duplicate it, because at this stage, don't care what it looks like. Notice what it did. I didn't even name it. It said, oh, right, there's already a heading with a number 2. How about I change that to a 3? Yeah, that's good. That's absolutely fine. And OK. And now we have a heading 3. Like I said, doesn't matter what it looks like at this stage. We will sort that out. But it does mean, back in here, in our paragraph styles, now we can apply a heading 3. Right, it's not done anything at this point. Don't panic. This is what it's searching for. It's not replacing it with anything we can see, but you can see here that it is going to replace it with a style. And when I say replace, it won't actually replace what we see. It will apply a style. Now, first of all, you need to think, where are you searching? Now, at the moment, the default is the document. For what we're doing, that will work. But if this recipe was part of an 80-page magazine, it may be that you want to limit this to the section, the spread, the page, the story, or the selection. In this case, story would work. Probably best. Page would just be the page on the left. The spread would work because it's on this spread. But as I say, for us, and most of the time, it doesn't really matter. In fact, safety net, if you are doing this in a magazine, do what I'm doing here first. Do all of this in a blank document that is not your work in progress when you find out you've just replaced something that shouldn't have been replaced. So just keep it separate and then copy and paste in the formatted text. So I will leave that set to document. Then you need to hit find. You're not doing anything dangerous by hitting find. What it will do is populate the dialog box at the bottom, and that will let you know how many of these it would change if you hit replace all. That gives you the opportunity to just do a quick check. Is there anything in there that shouldn't be there? Now, we can test that. Is there anything in there that shouldn't be in there? Well, if we'd done that, yes, because that is a 2 and that's a 2, but these are 3s and that's a 2. So that is why I said start in there with a level 3. Because you can see in here they are all level 3s. Right, once I've done that check, I can then just apply. And now I have a level 3 heading applied to all of these. I still have problems at this stage, which are I've still got the hashes in there. That is very simple to do. Go to the format and reset it. You've already applied the format, so the format won't change. So now what you're saying, if you did a replace all, is say take these symbols, this text, and replace it with nothing. And we've got rid of that. So those are our level 3s. Now, I know if you've never done this before, or you're not an expert in Markdown, you may be thinking, I'm lost. Take it slowly, step by step. I've done this that many times on short documents like this, but also on 80-page, 100-page, 300-page epics. And I can whiz through this quite quickly, which is just as well, but I still think they should add something to do this for you. But once you've done it 2, 3, 4 times, it's second nature. Right, the next thing I'm looking for is a level 2 heading, which is # and a space. And I want that replaced with a paragraph style for heading 2. Let me do a find first. There are indeed 3 of them. And then replace it. That applies the style. I know it looks like the level 3, but if you remember, that's because we duplicated it. Right, we then need to go back to the replace with, reset it because we've done the format, replace again, and we lose the hashes. Right, at that point, you've done your heading 3s, you've done your heading 2s. It gets a little bit more complicated at this stage, but nothing catastrophic. Right, I'm going to reset that find. The next thing I need to do is these bulleted lists. They're not really a bullet, are they? It's just a dash. It's not a proper bullet. So we could do with it being a proper bullet. We have a bullet style. We have bullet 1, and underneath that, we have bullet 2. If you're wondering about how this is going to work, I will explain that once we've done this find and replace. But these need to be bullets. These need to be bullets. How do we do that? Well, in the find, we need to find the dash. So we're definitely going to need the dash. Let's put the dash in. A dash is going to be followed by a space. So we'll put a space in. Will that do it? Not necessarily. We may have somewhere else in our text, like between soft and dough, for example, a dash and a space, and it will find that as well. Well, we don't want that. So we need to make sure that we're looking for a dash and a space, but only when it's at the beginning of a line. And how we do that in here is to go in and use a symbol, and that symbol is Shift 6 on my UK keyboard, which gives us a little hat. Is that a circumflex, Mike? It's a circumflex. That's the proper word. A little hat. I think everybody understands little hat far better. Right, that's what we need to search for. What do we need to replace it with? Well, a style. So in our paragraph styles, we have bullet 1. Are we good to go? Let's run the find. It didn't find a thing. Oh dear. Why didn't it find a thing? Well, by default, the find and replace dialog is searching literally. What it's looking for is the circumflex followed by a dash followed by a space. And I don't want the circumflex to be literal. I want it to represent a new line. So for that, I need to use a totally different method for the find and replace, which is in the cog at the top. And in here, this is a normal find and replace. This is a regular expression or regex find and replace. And I need that little hat circumflex to represent a new line, and regex understands that. So I change the search method, the find method, to regex and rerun the find. And now it finds all the instances of a dash that are at the beginning of a line. And then I can apply the bullet 1 format using the replace all. So far, so good. But it's left behind the dash and the space. So what I then need to do is get rid in here of the format and replace all again. And you can see what that did. You may be wondering how on earth it did that, because you may be thinking, just a minute, that dash wasn't, if I just undo that, that dash wasn't at the beginning of the line. The bullet point was. But remember, the bullet point isn't real. You can't select it. Look, the bullet point is there because you have applied a style. So the beginning of that line is still a new line, a dash and a space. So let's just, can we quickly redo that, or do we have to do the whole thing again? I think we have to do the whole thing again. Right. So we've done 3 search and replaces at this point. We've got the bullets sorted out. How about something really tricky now, which is, if I zoom in down to the roll pastry here, you can see that we have the 3 to 4 millimeters and the 10 to 12 centimeters. It has stars either side of it, little asterisks is there. And that, if you remember, indicated bold. Now, for a start, you can make a style called bold, no problem with that at all. But there is a default style that is bold, and it's called strong. So if we look across at the right-hand side in the text styles, it's the bottom one. So we already have the style we need. What we now need to do up here is work out what on earth we need to type in for it to find that, replace it with a style, and then delete the stars. That's what we need to do. So first of all, the find is going to be a bit trickier, and it is going to need to be a regex. So make sure that the tick is in the regex box before we get going. Now, what are we actually looking for? Well, we're looking for that circumflex. So, that's not circumflex, is it? No, that's an asterisk. Right. But I need it to be literal. And in regex, the star means something. It means any number of. To make it literally find those, I need to escape it, which you do with a backspace key. So the regex for this is a literal star followed by another literal star, which is a backslash and another literal star. Obviously, I need to put something in the middle then. And the something that's going to be in the middle is what? Well, it's hard to predict. It could be multiple words, it could be numbers, it could be anything. Oh, that's handy. We can in regex say find me anything. And that is, you open round brackets, parentheses, you put a full stop, you then put an asterisk in, followed by a question mark, and close the round brackets. All right, I know that's tiny. But what that means is anything. Find me anything. But obviously, you've already limited it to where it starts with asterisk, asterisk. You then need it to finish with the same. So, backspace and Shift and 8, backspace, Shift and 8. That is the code that you actually need. What are you replacing it with? Right, well, let's go in here. We've gone to the paragraph styles for everything else. But in here, we're going to character styles. And there is our strong, which is the equivalent of bold. And that is what we're going to replace it with. But if we did that, would it work? Well, first off, let's try the find. It's showing us every line that contains anything that should be bold. So yes, the find has worked. Would it work if we replaced all that lot? Well, we could do it, right? And it's made it bold. It's applied the style. We can see from the text styles, it has applied that here. What it didn't do was get rid of it. It didn't replace it didn't take away the codes that we need. So in here, you need to put, and I can't remember, do you need to? No, you don't. Right, in here, you need to say, okay, delete everything, but bring me back the bit between the stars. And you do that in regex by saying $1. And if we replace that, and I'm zooming in so you can actually see these two hopefully disappear, like that. They still have the style on them, so strong, but the stars have gone because what this find and replace did was it found it, it deleted it, and it replaced it with that bit in the middle there. That is what $1 means. Now, there are plenty of references online for regex and searches and how you would do that. But to be perfectly honest with you, you don't need to be an expert in regex to make this work. All you need is what I've got, which is a little code base that I keep in Obsidian. And I have in there, this is the code to search and replace for bold. This is italic. This is bold and italic. I've just got a whole range of them, which I can show you if you want to see that in the Q&A. Right, we've done it. So let's see the whole page there. That is the styles sorted out and applied. It doesn't look like we need it to look yet though, because that was the text processing. The next step for this is the text styles themselves. So I don't need to make that heading 3 because I've already done it. So there's a step I've done. But what I do need is to understand the style tree. And for some reason, people seem to find this quite complicated, but it's really easy. Right, that is what a style tree looks like. So at the top, I have the file, the recipe layout, and this is my text style tree. I separate that into 2 groupings. There are paragraph styles and there are character styles. If you are advanced with styles, and maybe you are ahead of me, you are screaming and saying, there's also group styles. I know, but I'm not using any today. I will cover that in the Mastering Text Style session. Did I mention that? Today, I'm only looking at 2 sets of styles, my character styles and my paragraph styles. And even then, only the ones that I'm actually using, or I've put there to show you something. So when it comes to understanding the style tree of your document, split the styles into 2, paragraphs and character. Difference between the 2? Paragraph styles apply to all the text in a paragraph. Character styles only apply to a selection that you select just before you apply it. At the top of the style tree for paragraphs, we have the base style. Notice that everything I'm applying today hangs off that base style. The base style is a group style. Then I have my body style, which is my default. And then within the base, I've got the bullet styles and the 3 headings that you've seen. Now, style trees can get way more complicated than that, but that is the full style tree for this document. So, the first thing we need to do is to go to the base style, right-click and edit it. What you are changing in here is what you want to ripple through your document. Now, at the moment, the text is Arial and it's 12, and I want that to be Poppins 11. And as soon as I do that, notice that things started to change in here. So I'm just going to click OK so we can see it, right? So if I select this, we can see that the font changed to Poppins. This is why the style tree is so important, because this style, this text has a style applied to it. It wasn't the base style, it was the body style. But look at the hierarchy here, and if yours doesn't look like this, you need to go to the top and show the hierarchy and sort by type. That is the view that I prefer. It is not the default view. But showing the hierarchy is critical if you're going to try and use this concept of a style tree. I've applied body, but look, body belongs to base. So any changes I make to base that are not overridden at body level will also apply at body level. So that has rippled through. Now, that will do for the base style. I then need to work through the rest of the styles and make sure that they are correct. Now, because body is based on base, I don't need to do anything with the body style. But the bullet style, which is the next one there, I do. And I also need to make changes to the heading styles, obviously. So my bullets at the moment are a little bit too widely spread. So I've clicked, that has selected the body style, right click on the name of it and edit it. Now in here, we can see lots of different options. Right, I'm concerned mainly with the spacing, and the spacing is part of the paragraph options. So I do want a left indent. I do want the text to be indented, and I'm quite happy with 6.4. The right indent doesn't need changing. The first line indent doesn't need changing. The last line doesn't need changing, so I'm not making any changes to those. But my spacing before and after needs changing because there's too much of it. So I'm going to set those to 0. The space between the same styles I will set to 3. And hopefully that will then apply. Right, here's hoping. Right, the next thing to think about is the headings. And at the moment, this is a heading 2, this is a 3, but we made the 3 by duplicating the 2, so they definitely need magic doing with them. So I'll start with the heading 2 and right click and edit. And the changes that I need in here, let's go up to character. Right, I need it to be bold and I need it to be 14 points. Well, it already is, so that's fine. In the spacing in here, I need to change the spacing because at the moment I've got the spacing is quite big and it just looks odd. So in the spacing, I'm going to set the before to 4 points. And in the after, I'm going to set that to 0. And that has the effect of pulling up the level 2 headings towards the level 1 headings. Right, the only other change I'm going to make in here, let me have a look, spacing after was set to 0. Right, the only other change I'm going to make in here is to the flow options. If I have a heading, I don't want that heading orphaned like this one is down here. So I can say keep with the next a certain number of lines, and I'm going to change that to 2. And that is that style sorted out. I know we still have problems here, but I think that's a 3 and not a 2. We'll deal with that. So that's the heading 2 sorted out. The next one to think about is the heading 3. So select some text that's formatted that way, edit heading 3, and I'm going to start with the character at the top. This one shouldn't be right because it was a duplicate of heading 2. So I need that changing to be slightly smaller, so 12 points. In the paragraph options here, the spacing before is no change. The spacing after is going to be 0, which again pulls it up. And then I need to change the flow options, so these aren't orphaned either. And I want to keep these with the next 2 lines. And OK. And it's starting to get there. Right, let me fold that one up. I'm looking what I've got left, and it needs to move slightly. You can never totally repeat something, you know. No matter how hard you try, it's out fractionally. So basically, this here needs to be back here. And it could be that I've just made something, 1 pixel out. If I do that, it solves the problem. So just make it a little bit bigger. Right, so we've got all of our text there. Now, I haven't quite finished. You could, if you remember, make a text style of this. Just make sure it's a heading 1 or it'll disappear from your table of contents. We also are going to have something else for this here, which is, I'm going to do that last for a reason. That's what I'm going to do with that. So I'm going to come back to that one with our makes text. I think I'll have to. Oh, no, I can do that. Okay, well, we'll do it. Right, what I want to happen with this one is that it looks like slightly pulled away. So I don't actually want it in there. I'm going to create a text box all of its own here. I'll put it in the right place shortly. I just want it somewhere where it's not going to interfere at the moment. Now, again, remember, this was the last text frame we created on the right. So when I create another one, it takes on the style, which is body, but it also remembers that I had it as 2 columns. So I'm going to take that back to 1 column. Then I will paste the text into it. And this actually needs a totally different style. At the moment, it's a heading 3. I'm going to make a completely new style for it. So at the bottom, you have the option to create one of 3 style types. The pilcrow is representing the paragraph style, the A is representing the character style, and the S is a group style. This needs to apply to that paragraph. So I'm going to make a paragraph style. Notice that it has suggested heading 4. That's not really what I want. This is going to be a call out. So I'll just call it call out. Right, font wise, you'll notice it's saying no change, no change. Now, no change from what? Well, at the top, it tells you what it's going to be based on, and it's based it on a heading 3. I don't really need that based on anything other than the base style. So I can change the structure of the style tree by changing what style another style is based on. So this one needs to be Poppins. In my font, do I need to choose Poppins? No, because it's based on the base style and Poppins is set at the base style. I do, however, need to make sure that this is bold. And the default size of the base style, you've probably forgotten, but it was 11. And this needs to be 24. So in there, I need to go in and make a change to that, make it 24. Right, because it's a call out, it also needs to be, in our paragraph here, aligned to the centre. And the default, everything so far is aligned to the left. So in the alignment, I'm going to change this to centre. Oh, we could have another argument like colour's got a U and centre's RE, not ER, but we won't. I don't know whether that... Let me know in the chat. If you're in America, is that ER? Let me know. Right, so we're sorted with that. We're not quite finished with it, though. Not yet. But we'll do it so we can see it. So that is what it's looking like so far. Now, this second bit here doesn't need to be that big. So I think I had it set to 18, like that. And it just pulls it back so it fits in the width that I've got there. Now, obviously, this ultimately is going to be somewhere over here. So if I put it there, I would probably make it that wide. And we are almost done. I think that needs to be 90 or maybe 91. Never mind. Right. We're almost done, but not quite. The original had a line at the top and a line at the bottom. Now, you may think that's fine. We'll go and get the pen tool and we will click and we will hold the shift key down. And now we've got a line. And indeed, we have. And what happens if at this point, looks fine at the moment, what happens if that happens? Not good. Not good at all. So we need magic to happen there as well. Right. Let's get rid of this and do it the right way. Which in here, let's go back into the call out style. So editing the call out style. And in our paragraph options, we have decorations at the bottom. Initially, this does not have anything applied. So we need to know what that would need to look like. Well, first of all, you'd need to enable it. and it gives you a number in here, decoration 1, because you can apply more than one decoration by adding extra decorations. 1 is going to suffice for us. Then you define what you want the decoration to look like. Now, I don't want any decoration on the left. I don't want anything on the right. But I do want it to have a top decoration and a bottom decoration. So if I go into here and I put -3, that'll be millimeters, you can see here nothing happens. Why did nothing happen? Well, I need to do that first, which is, say, top edge. I'm also going to need a bottom edge. So I make sure that I've got a top edge and a bottom edge. And now I have. Notice that before I had the bottom edge, the top edge was only the width of the top line. When I add in the bottom, it makes it the full width of that. Not quite right, though. The bottom edge here, I think that needs to move a little bit. So we'll make that -2, which pushes it down. So you've got multiple things going on in here. Step 1, enable it. Step 2, it will give you decoration 1. If you want any more, you're going to need to create them. Step 3, choose where you want the decoration. And step 4, define it in here. So I've said where I want the top and where I want the bottom. This step enables us to choose what it looks like. So at the moment, the stroke is set to 1 point, which is a bit skinny. So I think I'll go in there and set that to 2. And that should make it a little bit thicker. If you wanted a fill, you could do all of that. And if you've got multiple of these, then you do this combine identical. And it means you won't have multiple lines. But where you've applied that style straight after it, it will have 1 line at the top and 1 line at the bottom, irrespective of how many items you have. And OK, we are done. Now you can see that it is hanging outside. And if I double click this, so I can have that any size I like. But you can double click it and that will shrink it back to be just the size it needs to be vertically. And notice that the lines, the decorations, are hanging outside of that. Right, we are ready. We are ready to pull it all together. Here's where our problem's going to be. Right, so we have this text frame and we have this text frame. These two are linked and we have that text frame. So let's go back into our layers in here. Right, I would have named all of these layers because you see it is starting to get complicated. But let's start by turning on this frame over here. Make sure that your backgrounds are at the back. If you've turned them off and carried on working, it could well be that something like this has been put behind it. And you wouldn't want that. In fact, that's not even turned on, is it? Let's turn that on. You can see the issue, right? It could be that your text frames are behind it, right? So you could, which is which here? This is why I name them. Let's say your title, that could have appeared behind it. So make sure your backgrounds are actually at the back. Then we need to turn on the pictures. So there's one picture and there's another one over there. Obviously that's not good. And there's the one in the corner. Now here's the big problem. We turn that on, can't see the text. What most people want to do is take the text in this frame and have it formatted that way, and take the text in this frame and have it formatted differently. You don't need to do that. All you need to do with this frame is change its blend mode to one you will hardly ever use, which is contrast negate. What that does is flip it. And that is important because if you go in here and you add something, so I'm just going to add something, look what's happening. As the text moves from this frame to the frame on the right, it automatically changes from the dark colour to the light. You don't have to do anything. So it's not complicated. It's incredibly easy to do that. But we still have some problems, right? We have problems in terms of, this is where you've probably tried creating something and thought, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Right, this text is the wrong colour, so that didn't automatically work. Why not? on a lighter background. It needs to be on a darker background. But we've got text going through it. Oh dear. And you can see we've got text here that's 50-50. All right. And this is to do with the fact of how the text, the dark text, is interacting with what's behind it. And that is where the blend mode is coming in. Right. The first thing we need to do to fix this is this image here, which we've locked. So we need to go and select it in there. We need it to have a wrap on it, which it doesn't at the moment. So this is the text wrap window. And in here, there is no wrap on it. We need this to jump at best, maybe square or tight at best, or even jump. Right, if we jump, the text on the left disappears, and we don't want that. So we want it square then, or tight. And it doesn't actually make that much difference at this point which of those you choose. Is one word difference here. So I would have it set to that. That has solved multiple problems at this stage, but it's left other problems behind. So that was just altering the text wrap on that image. Right, what other problems did it have? Well, the text that says how many it made is still there, but it's here and we can't see it. Right, we need to pull that into place. And we've still got issues with it, haven't we? It's sort of working. I think I've got too much text here because I had enough room for that before. Oh, you got to love this, haven't you? Right, and what I would do with that then is unlock this and make it smaller. And that will give me more room for this text here. Right. Although why it isn't working properly is beyond me. So let's make it work there. Right. One thing I was going to show you, and I don't think we've actually got the problem, which is concerning, isn't it? Right, I don't think we've got the problem, which is, let me turn some of this off and then hopefully we'll see the problem. That is the problem. If your background isn't dark enough, you get this kind of distressed effect. That was why I added a second copy and used the multiply blend mode. But note, we still have problems. It's not dark enough. So this is how we fix that. In fact, I'll leave it zoomed into that so we can see it. It was the word cold, wasn't it? Right. All I'm going to do to fix it is take hold of this, which is one copy of our background with multiply set on it. What I'm going to do is duplicate it, Command and J. That makes the background darker and solves our problem. So the background has to be quite dark for that to work. And I would love to know why that didn't work when it did in rehearsals and it worked perfectly. Okay, that's got to be something to do with the styles that I created in here. So let me have a look what I did font and colour wise. I didn't change the colour. I did not change the colour. But if you need me to fix it for you, let's apply a colour. All right, no, you're still not changing, are you? I've got no idea what's going on there because it worked in rehearsals. I'm not going to waste time fiddling with it. You're going to have to just trust me on that it does work. Right. Things are 99% accurate. They are virtually identical to what I had in the other one. But just so I can show you the thing properly finished, let's open that. In fact, that is so good you hardly noticed a difference, did you? There's one thing I didn't do that I need to do, the last thing. But that did work in there. I've got no idea why it's not working in the other one. It's just going to misbehave. Right, what I will do in here, we are missing something. In here, we have a gluten-free logo. We also have a little bit more room to fit it in. But I have a gluten-free logo. Right, I will show you the gluten-free logo. It is part of a range of icons that I created for all the different types of food. So there they are. Now notice that they all have a white background. So I will open that up and you can see it. There is the white background that we have. And it can, of course, just be turned off. That gives us a problem, doesn't it? Not to worry. That's the file we're working with. I'm going to close that file and go back to the one that we've created today. Right, I'm going to place that file. So I'm going to do that. I could file place or I could just drag and drop. And what that embeds is an editable copy of this. In the layers here, you can see it at the top, it has a different icon. Now, at this point, I'm going to save this file because this is where it all went wrong yesterday. Just like playing with my mind. Right, first thing I need to do is get it reasonably the right size. So it's sort of there, that'll do. Right. But the white background doesn't look great, and I would rather it didn't have a white background. It's an embedded file. You can see it's actually an AF design file. It's a designer file. I can edit that, allegedly, in here. I say allegedly because this is what got nuked yesterday and I don't know why. But to edit it, I double click it. What I'm now editing is a version of this file that is embedded in my recipe. That's why at the top it says embedded. Now we already know I can't just turn the background off because that isn't what I want it to look like. But I have two shapes here, and one thing I could do is a Boolean operation. I could take one shape away from the other, like that. And that gives me a new curved shape, which is the circle. And we could use that as is. The problem is, if I wanted to use this again on that page, and I wanted it to have a white background, I've got a problem with that. I'd have to come in here and basically recreate it. So I'm going to undo that. A better way to work with the Boolean operations is to do exactly the same thing, but hold the Option key down. And when you do that, you create a compound path, but you do not destroy the two paths you already had. So it's undoable. It's non-destructive editing. Right, this is the bit where it went wrong last time. All I did was close the file and it obliterated it. But it's working today. So something else isn't working today, but never mind. Right. Am I in the right file here? Yes, I am. There we go. Going back to that file. So there you can actually see through that. I might have wanted to keep the white background if I'm putting it on here. Although I would probably change the entire colour scheme if I was going to do that. So there we have it. All done. Apart from the one thing that isn't working, which we'll look at that one, because that one is working. And there you have it. So we're almost finished. Almost. Right, I need to move a couple of things, and we will head into here before Q&A. So, I need to do one more thing. I knew that. So it was a good job that I set that, a little reminder for myself to set up there. Okay, let me go into here. Just one more thing before we recap and take your questions. Right, we always try and take your suggestions on board. And we had a suggestion this week. This was our suggestion before we even started, right? It was a comment before the live stream from Annie. We all want some of TT's sausage rolls. Now, if you're wondering, TT is one of Mike's nicknames. It's a long story involving a 3-foot Toblerone. The point being, Annie has requested sausage rolls for you all. Well, we drink our own champagne here, and we eat our own sausage rolls. So, let's have a look at them. Now, first of all, you need to know that this is live. That this is not something that we've done earlier. No. This is live. So what I'm going to do is, that is my desk, and there is me. It's live. Just to make sure you know that, I'm going to move this up so you can see my screen. There is what it looks like. Right, let's get that back, pointing at the desk, and bring in, courtesy of Mike, sausage rolls, cooked by his own fair hands this morning, before I was even awake. Don't they look absolutely gorgeous? Now, that's good as far as it goes. Can you still hear me? I need to make sure that the audio's working for this next bit. Tell me that you can hear me, Mike. Excellent. Right. So I'm going to have a look at these. Tell me if you like the look of them. Oh, aren't they gorgeous? Just look at that. But for this to have the full impact, you need to hear one being eaten, don't you? So I'm going for this one. No, Mike. I'm putting it next to the microphone and let's hear it crunch. It's gorgeous.
Right.
It's wine.
You've got to teach.
No, that's not fair. He's got a good point, though. Oh, I can hear it crunching because Mike's eating it.
Well,
Right, there you go. Bites were taken. It was eaten. Now they've got to sit in front of me while I do the Q&A and I can't eat any. They are absolutely perfect, Mike. Just saying. Right. Let's switch back to where we were. I will. No, they're fine where they are, Mike. I might be on left later, but there you go. Right. So, there's no live streams that do this, is there? Affinity training and live sausage roll eating. What can I say? Right, so let's have a recap. No, it's fine. I'll leave you off for the moment. Right. What did we do? We did the initial document setup. We created 2 backgrounds. We worked with images. We did the text styles, and you saw a text style tree. We converted Markdown to style text, not as difficult as you will find it the first time. And then we put it all together. Now, in terms of detail, we had the initial document setup, which was the colour format, the size, the margin, the bleed, the pages, and the baseline grid. We did put a bleed on it, even though it wasn't intended for print, because it's easier to do the work once than do it twice. When we did the background, we had picture frames, we placed the images, we masked some images, and changed the blend modes. The images themselves, we added picture frames, and we masked some of those as well. On the textiles and style tree, we added text frames, explained what happens in terms of, I think I've just got a garlicky bit here, Mike. I'm going to have to take a mouthful. You must have put some spices in. It's nice. Right. We added the text frames and we saw the textile tree. The textile tree, we then needed to create some extra styles as well, remember. There will be more on that in an upcoming session. Converting the Markdown to style text looked difficult, but it's not as difficult as it looks. Trust me on that. And the find and replace dialogue is quite advanced with the regex. And then putting it all together. More on blend modes, editing the embedded files. It worked this time. Something else didn't, but that did. Didn't work yesterday. Unlocking the layers. So what I would say with embedding files is if you're going to edit an embedded file, well, don't if you don't have to. That would be rule 1. Rule 2 would be save the file before you edit it. If you then go in and edit it, you may even want to copy everything that's in the embedded file first. I will dig out the file and I'll share it at some point that it nuked itself. And then there was locking layers. And of course, everything I do is available on demand with my Affinity with Elaine playlist, which you will find at that QR code or from my site, from YouTube, my channel on YouTube. And it's growing exponentially. We started with everything you need to know to get started. We followed that up with your first layout. Do you know the deep dive one on Data Merge, Mike? It's had the fewest views of all of the others, which is strange because I only did it because people were asking for it. Then we did creating a calendar, followed that up with planner pages. We've got 2 sessions on photo books. We then did the trifold brochure. People like the trifold brochure. We did scrapbooking as well. And last week it was working with colour. And this week it was our recipe layout, but it's full of transferable skills. Everything you learn in one document can be used in another. If you have found anything useful, please give the video a like. It makes a massive difference on YouTube, as does subscribers. And as Annie is noticing, Annie's the official counter, isn't she? Annie's noticing that we are heading towards 50,000. I would really, really, really like to get to 50,000. That'd be nice. I think YouTube would like me to as well. Obviously, if you're in the chat, you're already subscribed. But if you're watching this and you're not subscribed, please subscribe and tell your friends. And we'll have a massive party and maybe a special session when we get to 50,000. So think of that as an incentive. If you've made it this far in the comments, you can't leave a comment straight away. You can only leave a comment when we've finished broadcasting live. But we have a tradition. We have an emoji. And today there's only one emoji, isn't there? It's the hot dog. It was the nearest I could get to a sausage roll. Do you know there's not an emoji of a sausage roll? Which is criminal. But we'll go for a hot dog instead. That one's actually cooked. If you've been with Mac Bites After Hours, you know the joke about the non-cooked hot dog. But if you are leaving a comment later, put the emoji in, and I know you've made it this far. Now, I've been teasing this all day. Next time. What are we doing next time? Well, we've had lots of requests. I did in my email put in what was winning, and we had it was a duel to the death between Textiles and Raycast. But I can announce the winner. Textiles won. I think that's because the Windows users voted for Textiles, because Raycast isn't quite there yet on Windows, but it's coming. So next week, same time, same place, it will be Mastering Textiles in Affinity by Canva. So thank you very much for being with me. You will find me on the socials, although I'm a bit grumpy with Facebook at the moment. The real place to find me is Blue Sky. That's where I am most of the time. If I'm on the socials, it'll be Blue Sky, because Blue Sky's nice. Twitter, less so. Facebook, bad news last week. That's why. But thank you for being with me. If you want first notification of everything that we do, then go to elainegiles.com/VIP. And that is the QR code, and sign up to the newsletter. There's big news possibly this week, maybe next week, isn't there? I'll turn your microphone on now and then they can hear you. Say hello to them.
Hello.
Oh, you've finished eating sausage rolls.
I haven't finished eating
Thank
roll.
Thank you. He ate half my sausage roll. That was my sausage
You've
roll.
got a whole, what's the plate of them there?
There is, and they're on my desk, aren't they? So yeah.
Yes.
They're not. Are you taking Lola for a walk? Because they won't be there when you get back. Yes, we've got big news coming, particularly if you are a publisher user, Microsoft publisher. But that is by the by. Let's have a look at what the Q&A is saying. So, what questions have we got, Mike? Is number one question, can I have a sausage roll?
No.
I want to nibble this sausage roll.
Right.
Well, if you take 20 minutes.
No. Right, here we go. Okay. Annie says I never mentioned the match.
No, but I tell you what, he had a smile on his face.
Yes, he wasn't grumpy like last week.
He wasn't grumpy like last week. Oh, he was delirious. Apart from VAR, I think VAR, if VAR hadn't have happened, Mike would have been happier.
Yes. Anyway, Solhat says, question about bleed. Is there no way to tell Affinity for images that are aligned exactly to the margin, automatically move them to align to the bleed instead if I add a bleed?
No, there isn't.
Right. Okay. Annie says, is 15mm bottom margin just a personal preference as opposed to equal margins all round?
It's a personal preference.
Mike Brett says, and I don't know if this was what you answered right at the beginning, when you use bleed on a facing page doc like this, do commercial digital printing processes never require bleed on the spine, inner edge, only on the top, bottom and outer page edges?
It takes care of it. Was this the question that was in
the forum
After Hours? Right, this one shouldn't have had that extra bit of sausage roll then. All right, it's all right, I've had a drink. Leave the sausage rolls alone, woman. Right, this is the one that I've created today. So this one has a bleed on it. This one does not have a bleed on it. Right, what you'll find in here is, let me know the answer to that question, Mike, by the way. Is this the one in the community?
Yes, it's Mike that put it in the community.
Right, excellent. Okay. Right, the best way to start is to add a bleed, whether you need one or not. That if you end up in a situation like you're in right now, then obviously you can't go back and start again. But for the future, add a bleed even if you don't think you're going to need one. And put the images into the bleed. And that way it won't make that much difference digitally, but it will work in terms of what you need for your printer should you decide to print it. Now, once you've done that, and you could do that retrospectively, but here's what would happen. If you add a bleed to this, you go to your document setup, there's your document, full document, and this does not have a bleed. All right, you would add your bleed to it there. You can see it's got inner, outer, top and bottom. because it knows it's a spread, it's got facing pages, and you just click OK, and it adds a bleed. Now, obviously, the problem you've got is that your background is not automatically going into the bleed. The kind of thing that was just asked about with can you not automatically tell it to do that is the kind of feature they would have added into their original applications, but I doubt they would add that into Affinity because they're trying to pitch this as professional, and professionals probably wouldn't want that. What you would need to do in here is unlock your backgrounds and select your backgrounds and manually put them into the bleed, which is time consuming and tricky. That's why I would say do it from the beginning. So for a start, this image here is separate from the background, so that would have to go in. Then I'd have to select the background. And in that one, I would need to stretch it up, stretch it out to the right, and stretch it over here. So it could be done, but depending on the number of pages you've got, you'll kick yourself for not doing that before. And notice that that hasn't gone in properly into the bleed. It's fiddly. So because of that, I would add a bleed to start with and just work to the bleed and then just ignore it. Now, your next issue was producing it. That for print, you need standalone pages and not spreads. And I think in the question that was in the community, it was, so I'm going to have to change the document. So if we look at the pages, I'm going to have to change the document from spreads to pages to do that. No, you do not. It will take care of that. So if this were going for print, I would do the export. Obviously, it's going to pre-flight me and I'm going to ignore that at the moment. Right, in here, I would decide what I'm going to do for print. Now, there is a for print option, but you know that I use a print service, and this is my print service. I have documents that look identical to this that I have sent for print, and I have never separated the spreads before I do it. What happens in here is you choose for print and you put all the ticks in all the boxes, which is what all this bottom one is. It's customized for my print service, but the principles are the same. So I'm going to make this so we can see it. Right. That is page 1 that's got the table of contents on it. Obviously, what we're interested in is pages 2 and 3, which we can't see there. But notice in here what it's going to do. All right. We have all spreads. You could, in there, choose all pages. Doesn't really make much difference. I will show you first what all spreads does, right, as it calculates. And also in here, I've got the printer's marks and whether I'm including the bleed and what I'm doing to produce it, right? So that is my default for my printer. So I'm going to export that. We will put it in here. And that one is, let's not give it a name. Let's just call it recipe 1 and get it in there. That is making a PDF of that file that we will then have a look at. Now, in your circumstance, could have been starting off and thinking, right, what I want this to be is digital. So let me go back to the same dialog. So I'm exporting. And this time I want it digital. So I'm exporting digital high quality. Right, the difference this time, so let's go up to the top, see what we've got there. Everything in here identical, only it's going to be, let's say, digital high quality. So we're making a PDF, it's just going to be a totally different PDF. Right, let's have a look what we've got with our PDFs. So it's just appeared. So the first one that I'm opening is this, and this is not what you need. Right, for a start, I've got problems in relation to the contrast negate on that, but that is a technical issue. But you do not want to produce something that looks like this if they've asked for separate pages. So yes, you've got a print version, but you do have the issue in the middle. Right, the digital copy should be absolutely fine. That is what I would produce, and I've not got the bleed on it or anything else either. I just have the spreads. Right, but back in here, what you actually need to do for your printer is go into your export and choose for your printer. In the area, choose pages, all pages, and export that. Now it's thinking about it. So this is, let's say, all pages. Right, but it's all pages, but it's all pages using the print output. So it's just created it. I will open it. And now what you have, it has taken care of the bleed. There is the dark bit from the second page of the recipe. In this one, it has taken care of the left-hand bleed, which is the lighter bit. So you definitely do not need to be concerned about going into here and changing this from facing pages, spreads, to individual pages. Do not do that. It's overcomplicating it. It's just not needed. So a lot of the questions I get are related to colour spaces and producing for print. And people think they need to do a heck of a lot more work than they actually do, because Affinity will take care of it via that export dialog box. So in your circumstance, the inner and outer, you don't need to worry about. It will take care of it. And I know for a fact that I have sent things that look like that for print and they come back perfect. In fact, I've got one to hand. Have you got a triple MF brochure, Mike? Just dig one out if you can find one. Oh, you've got one. Excellent. Right. And this was a couple of years ago, but it's the same thing. Right, let's leave those sausage rolls there and let's switch to the camera. Right, let's go over here. Right, can you see the sausage rolls and the half-eaten one? Right, what I have there is a brochure that went for print. And when you look at it in here, particularly the pages with the pictures on, I don't know if I've got any going across, but in here, that went for print and it looked on the screen identical to that recipe. I did not separate it out to make it work. So what we have there, if those pictures had have gone over, they would have automatically been dealt with. Now, if I hadn't have done that in that way, there may have been a white stripe going up here on the join, on the spine, but there isn't. It's absolutely perfect because I created it in exactly that kind of way. So hopefully that will answer the question in the community as well.
It does.
Excellent.
He says very, very clear. Thank you.
Right. What else have we got?
Right. Annie says surprised to see any left.
Yeah, I know. I'm so tempted.
Right. Sol Hat again. About picture frames. Sometimes for me, when I change the zoom options in the properties of the picture frame, the zoom doesn't seem to reset properly. Is the only solution a new frame?
Right. Let's have a look. Let's go into here. Lose the PDF. Which on earth file am I editing here? Right. So if we go into that picky, which looks like it's locked, let's get into there and do a zoom. Right. Can we reset it? Well, you can certainly pull it down and reset it that way. It does always twang to the middle though, doesn't it? Let's right click and have a look. Do we have a reset option? You wouldn't actually need to create a new frame. You can in here size to the contents. Are these any good for you? You can maximum fit or minimum fit. You can stretch it to fit or you can have no fit. And then now, if I did no fit and I went back to this, no, it's not actually. If I do that and then go into there and say none, yeah, it's not actually doing anything, is it? So if we go to the max fit, that is fitting the majority of the photo in the frame. That is the nearest I think you've got to a reset. And if the frame matched the original photo, then doing that would send it back to exactly where it was. But when I say you don't need to delete the frame, what you could do in here is just delete the image, and that would leave you the frame, and then you could go and get the image. So in my images, which was which? that one. And you could re-add it and see if that worked. And that might help. But what I'd like to see in here is that if you were to click on this frame, so where's the frame gone? That picture frame. It'd be nice if you could double click on that and it take it back to the default, which you can do in certain dialog boxes. You see sliders in dialog boxes, you can double click it and it twangs back to the middle. But it doesn't look like the picture frames are doing that, but you do have a couple of options. So hopefully they'll help a little bit. What else have we got?
Said, would it have anything to do with where it's enlarging from?
It could do. It could be anything with that. You also get different behaviour, whether you're actually scaling the image itself or you're using the picture frame to scale the image. So most of the time when I'm working with images, I need the whole image. So you saw that brochure that I showed you. There were lots of pictures of people, and I don't need heads cut off or whatever. Once it's set, it's set. But if your images are of a more technical nature, then you may need more control over it. We'd have to look at that, wouldn't we, during an images session?
Yeah. Right. Amelia says, Elaine, do you use Adobe fonts? And if so, how do you get them?
I have access to Adobe fonts, not on this device. I don't have Creative Cloud installed on this computer, but I do have it installed on a secondary computer. I try not to use Adobe fonts because it just makes it more difficult if I want to work cross-device and I don't have access to them. So I tend not to use them, although I do have access to them.
Okay. Akido Rates said, why don't you cut out the roles? That was from very early on.
Right. If that was in relation to why don't I cut out the roles, I'm assuming that you mean on this image here. And the reason that I didn't cut the rolls out was that there was a drop shadow on them. And if I'd have cut the sausage rolls out, I would have had to have added back some kind of shadow to make it look realistic. So I decided that I would keep as much background as possible, but soften the edges so it looked like the background image and the rolls merged. Depending on the image, I could have knocked it out. It would very much depend. If we look at this one here, for example, the background of that is wood, which I've got the background here as wood. The issue with this is it's got the sausage rolls hanging off the end. But I could have done that if I wanted by working round here, and then it wouldn't have had this extra background on it. That I may have done, but this wouldn't have needed much in the way of drop shadow. But this one, I felt it needed the natural drop shadow, so that's why I didn't knock the rolls out.
Okay. SFN says, what's defined as a story?
It's the frames that you have linked together.
Okay. Renee says, when you edit the text styles, does that only affect the active document or your basic overall style for future documents?
It only impacts the current document. Now, when we look at text styles next week, I will explain how you would do that in a way to make sure that future documents use the new style. There are multiple ways to do that. Some are better than others. I'm limited in terms of if I edited, I have a set of styles which are my preference for styles. I can actually show you that. So if I in here go and get a template, so my templates here, I have a whole range of stuff in here, and some of these are like my ebooks. So if I'm making an ebook, I don't want to have to come in here and fiddle with styles, right? So the styles are already there. If we go into the text styles, you can see there's a whole range of them. I've got step styles, I've got headings. Inside the base, I have body styles, notice, not body. When I open that up, I have body styles primary and secondary, which enables me to have two full sets of styles in colour A and another set in colour B, based on the fact that in the swatches, I have a document palette, which has text primary and text secondary in it. So there's my body styles primary. Notice there is body. Inside body, there is footer and small text, drop caps, you name it. And in the secondary, exactly the same styles, but with secondary after them. Also notice that all of these have shortcut keys to make them work faster. So it would make sense if I said File New that I had my styles. But the problem with that is, for me, if I do that, make the magic beans that would update Affinity internally, and every time I say File New, it gives me these, when I'm doing a demonstration, people would be screaming blue murder that they don't have the same styles and they can't possibly follow the tutorial because they don't have the same styles. So what I do is just use the default styles and edit them as I go when I'm doing a demonstration. So you've got at least two ways to do what you want to do. If you want those styles to apply to future documents, make a template, which is what I do. The other way is to update Affinity internally to use a new default range of styles, which we'll look at next week. So hopefully that answers that question.
Okay, Solmat Solhat. About Markdown. It's to avoid bringing unwanted formatting into Affinity, isn't it? Does Markdown then require its own application? I assume Sublime is one of many possible.
Right. In terms of what it's used for, it started off life as just a way to take a text file and describe its contents. So if you imagine a text file, if you put some text in and it's a heading, how do you know it's a heading? So these codes were created to say that's a heading, that's bold, that's italic, that's underline. And, you can get quite advanced with it. You can do whole tables if you want. When you say, so you're not bringing in unwanted detail, it's handy to write in Markdown because you can use it in multiple places. So I think Word can import Markdown. Honestly, if Word can do it, why can't Affinity? Scrivener can output to Markdown. In terms of the applications that support Markdown, there's many, many, many of them. Every text editor will enable you to open a Markdown file. By default, Sublime doesn't actually colour code it. Not by default. You can edit it so it does, and obviously you've seen that with mine. You will also find, this is for the Mac, but don't let that put you off. If you go into the store and you type in Markdown, you'll see just how many applications support it. So there's something called Markdown Editor. Heaven knows how old that is now, 4 years ago. But what this enables you to do is write in Markdown and visualize that Markdown over here. So that is giving you a kind of bilingual view of it. One is the native code. There's your headings. And this is a preview of what that will actually look like. So initially, it might be a good idea to try some of these applications. That is another one, MWeb. Ulysses I actually use. Bear supports Markdown. Obsidian supports Markdown. There is a whole range of them. There's another one called AI Writer. IA Writer. Like AI, but the other way around. Have a look in here. That's one that I've actually got. So that'll be IA Writer. And these are dedicated editors for Markdown. This is one of the most popular. And again, what you're doing in here is, it's got the symbols in it. And as you move across, can we see all of this? Yep. Struck through text. All of this is supported. Now, let me show you Ulysses. Let me move over here while I just find the right thing. Let's do the live sessions, I think. Right. And where have you disappeared to? Content creation live sessions. Right. Right. Here are my live sessions and what they actually look like. So let's bring that on. What we've got here is an application called Ulysses that is writing in Markdown. So this is my library over here. These are my live session posts, and these go straight to my blog. So what we're looking at here is the post that is live on my blog right now, advertising this event. Notice that it supports code. So when I said Markdown can get a lot more complicated than today, that's supporting code. This embeds a video. These are headings. So that one is a heading 2. There's a little symbol. I don't think in here I've got a heading 3, but I could have. If we go back to some of these old ones, do I have others in there? I've got like a bulleted list in there. So this is giving me a sort of preview of what that would look like. But in terms of, do I write in Markdown deliberately to bring it into Affinity and not bring anything else with it? Not necessarily. I write in Markdown because I want to paste it into Ulysses and post it on my blog. I want to put it into Affinity to style it. So keeping it in Markdown as I create it is the most flexible thing for me to do. That is Ulysses. If I show you the recipe again in Sublime, let's open that up in Sublime. This is just a text editor. And you can see that you've got your level 2s and your 3s and your bullets. And these would convert into proper bullets if the receiving application understood that it was a bullet. So if I were to take all of that, like that up there would actually be a heading 1. Okay, let's take all of that, copy it, go into Ulysses, and we'll do it just up here. So just add a new post and paste, and it sorts the rest out. I don't have to do a thing. It even knows that these are bullets. So if I wanted to preview that, right, that is what that would look like if it was posted on my blog. And look, these are proper bullets. It's interpreted them. And that is what is missing from Affinity. I should be able, in my opinion, to copy that text from my text editor and do what I did in here, and it understand it natively, and it doesn't. But Markdown, as far as I'm concerned, is the way to go because it lets me repurpose it in so many different ways. And also, I don't tend to bring in Markdown tables or anything overly complicated into Publisher. So pretty much all I'm going to need to do is a search and replace for the headings, the bullets, the bold, and maybe italic. And that's about it. So converting it doesn't take too long either. So it isn't really to not bring any detritus in. It's just that's the format that I use because it makes what I've written repurposable, or more repurposable than it would be if I had to copy and paste it from Word and it's got all the formatting with it. What else have we got?
Word can import Markdown, but it needs a plugin, so I'll put a link in the chat for anyone who's interested. What else have we got? This is from Solhat. It would be very much appreciated if you could comment on the optical alignment option in the text styles dialog box, when to use it and when not to.
Definitely if you're printing, I would say. It depends on the materials that you're creating. I will talk about that more next week, adding it to a style.
Okay, from SFN. When setting the space before after, is it typical to 0 after to pull the next bit of text up as you did? Just wondering if there's a best practice.
It's really up to you. It's going to depend on the document. It's going to depend on the setup of the document. What I wanted, you would imagine if you said no change, that it was set to 0, but not necessarily. It depends where it came from. So, for instance, the base style did already have, by default, remember I use the default styles, the base style did already have spacing before and after, and it wasn't the same as I wanted on the headings. So that's why I changed it on the headings. But the body style was based on the base style, and the body style did need spacing. So I had a couple of options. You have a couple of options, depends how you choose to do it. You could have changed the base style to say none and then applied it where you needed it. Or you could have done it the way that I did it. It's personal preference. It's what works for you. It could be that you've come from a different application or you need it to work in a different way. And because of that, you decide to do it a different way. It's completely up to you depending on your workflow. As far as I was concerned, today wasn't about text styles in depth. It was just about, I brought the text in, there's this style, and this style, and this is what I need to change in them to make the text fit the space. And still we had a couple of words hanging over, didn't we? But that always happens, trust me. Right, what else?
Okay, from SFN again. Ari the icon, if you needed it with the white background elsewhere, can you turn it back on? Wouldn't it affect both instances?
It would depend whether you were putting it in another file or not. The change that I made, I've got a video on this. Do you want to find it, Mike? It was embedded and linked files. But in essence, in here, let's go find it. Is this the one or is that
embedded and linked files?
Yeah, it was about Affinity Photo, but the principle's still the same. Right, in here, if I take this and I duplicate it, so now I've got 2 copies of that. Right, and in my layers, I can double click to edit it. Right, so if what I wanted in here was to say, no, don't want that anymore, right, then let's take it out of the compound, which will put it at the top. And we can take that out of the compound as well if we like, and then we can delete the compound. Right, so we're back to where we started, where we've got a white shape and we've got this curved background. And I'm editing the embedded file, and I'm going to close that embedded file. And this is where I was, and notice what's happened. Both instances now have a white background. You want to see that again? Let's go into this. Let's grab that and make it some hideous colour and come out of it. And when we go back to our document, both have changed, because although these look like they are 2 independent files, 2 independent documents that are embedded, one is a copy of the other. Photoshop's language for this is much better. It calls those clones, and you would have the opportunity to disconnect them. And then you would be able to edit one without editing the other. The language and names of things in Affinity is poor when it comes to embedded files. Now, what I could do at this stage, let's go back to my folder that has got my icons in it. And here is my gluten-free icon. So I'll drag and drop that in again. Now, although it is identical to what the other ones started as, this one is not a clone of the other 2. So back in here, if I were to edit that, where's my shape? That one, let's make it that colour and do that and go back to the file. The 2 that were clones, so I started off with one and made a copy of it, they are clones. This one is not. This can be edited independently. One thing to think about, if I were to edit this one, let's make that a hideous blue. Right. That's a bit better. Right. What you are doing here, you've edited this one, which in turn edits that one because they're clones of each other. This one is edited independently of the first 2. But all of those edits are completely independent from this file. We open up that, it's the original file. And that is because I embedded the file. Now, obviously, the alternative is to link the file, in which case changing one instance of it will change all of the others. So there is a video if you found the link.
Yes, I'll put it in the chat.
Although it's for Affinity Photo, the principles are identical. Exactly the same. So if you linked that file and then made a change to the original, then all of them would update. Having said that, in this file, this one, and this one would not update if you linked it unless you exported these as linked files. So that's why you need to watch the video. I think it's about 25 minutes. It explains all of that. But the terminology that's used in Affinity is very, very poor. It just calls it an embedded file. Well, it could be, but it could be a clone of another one. And there just isn't the language in Affinity. I would say these are smart objects. Now, they took a decision not to call them smart objects, but they actually are, because some people get very confused that they've imported something, They've made a copy of it, they make a change to one, and now the other one's changed. It's like, whoa, what's happening? It's just the way it works, but unfortunately the language isn't there to fully explain it without using Photoshop language. But you are not editing the original file that is saved on your hard drive unless it was linked and not embedded, and mine were embedded.
Okay, SFN says, RE the icon, which is what you just said. That's what I thought, but I thought you didn't subtract the background so you could reuse it elsewhere.
I just did that just to point out to you that if you do change your mind, rather than go in and have to re-edit it, you can just do what I did, which was just basically turn it back on again.
Right, okay. Solmat Solhat, I get a bit confused by the export options for print and press ready. Could you comment on the difference between them?
When you are exporting anything in here, so file export, ignore and continue. Right, all of these are just settings that are over here. So when we talk about our studios, the Vector Studio, the Pixel Studio, the Layout Studio, they're not different apps anymore. They're just different interfaces. They're different settings for the tools that are visible. So if I go from Layout to Pixel, the brush tool's available. I could add the brush tool to the layout if I wanted. It just makes, I don't make too many changes to my interface because I'm demonstrating all the time. Right. Just like your studios are just saved presets, these options in here are all just saved presets. They are just a saved collection of what you set on the right-hand side. That's it. So it isn't that I go from press ready to digital high quality and whoa, everything's different. That the options that you have available to you are identical. What is different is what you have a tick next to and what you don't. So if I'm doing something for print, you will notice in here, for example, where have they put it now? There's a lot of options in here, which I'm not seeing. Come on, where are you? Dimmed out, probably. Where are you? Crying out loud. It's the sausage rolls, the smell of them, Mike's putting me off. It's all right, don't take them away. They're quite happy where they are. But basically, what you have in here is just is it toggled on or off. And if you're printing it, you'll notice in here, there's what I'm looking for. No hyperlinks, no bookmarks. You're printing it on paper. Hyperlinks wouldn't work. Bookmarks wouldn't work. But the options are there if you choose to turn them on. It won't stop you. Whereas, if you go for your digital high quality, notice that these are turned on. These are only saved settings. So which ones you should use, I don't think you can actually choose one of these without talking to your printer, your print service. If you are printing it, then choose print. So this is you printing it locally. Choose print and go through every single option. Do you want to include the bleed? You might want to. You might not. Do you want to include the printer's marks? It's unlikely, but you might. So just go through the settings. But if you have a print service like I do, go in and customize one of these and then save it. So you may have a starting point, which might be press ready. And then in there, you may want to make some changes. So let's say in there that instead of PDF 1.7, you've been told that they need 1.6. And then you change that. And there may be other settings that they want in here as well. So this one, include printer's marks, is no. Well, let's say we do want that, but we don't want the colour bars. So just turn them off. Right, you've made changes to that now. Something has happened which you won't even notice, which is up here, something has disappeared. And what has disappeared is the name of the preset, because this is now no longer the preset. But what you can do in here is create a preset. Now, I think interface-wise, it's shocking that once the name goes, how would I know that I can create a preset? But you can. So I would create a preset. and give it a name. So in this case, it's just demo. And that adds it at the bottom. And all that is a saved set of configuration options of every option that is available on the right-hand side. That's it. That's all it is. So what you need to set in there, your print service will tell you. So for instance, today we looked at one for Mike, which was he would need to make sure that pages was set at the top. Now mine in here is set to all pages because it's going for print, and you've seen what one of those things looks like. But other things may have that set to spreads or whatever. So it's just a set of configuration options. Don't guess and don't just choose one based on, oh, well, I think that one, it's a PDF and yeah, that'll work. You need to drill down and look at the options. And if you're archiving it, for example, there will be a set of options. And for archiving, it will be important that that file can be read in 50 years' time. And there are versions of the PDF specification that they do guarantee will be able to be read in 50 years' time. Other ones, there won't be. So it really depends. You need a specification, which is just a list of settings for whatever you are producing. If it's going to print, it will look one way. If it's being printed locally, it will print and it will look a different way. If you are creating a PDF for digital consumption, it will look a third way. That's all it is. But I can't say to you, use X or use Y, because it depends on the circumstances. But once you get your head around the fact that all you're doing is making changes on the right-hand side and saving them, the rest should be a little bit easier. What else have we got?
SFN again. Ari the sausage rolls background on the left, would that print as well? I mean, because you resized the background, so wondering if you'd be able to see the transition when printed.
I don't think so. Looking at it, it looked okay. So let's go in there, have a look at it. Let's move these. That's why I said you may choose to spend more time with it. But, I can see that this side looks fine. I would say there I can see a transition. But you just take more time and are more careful with the mask. But this isn't a session of you watching me mask something for 3 hours. So the principle is mask it. The detail to take away is take all the time you need to get it right. I still would not, with that image, knock it out and then try and add a drop shadow back to it later. I wouldn't. Okay, what we got?
Okay, Jammy wants to know if the YouTube issue has started improving since you've done these sessions.
Oh, Jammy. No, it's getting worse. Me and YouTube, well, we could very easily fall out, put it like that. When I did the first session for this version of Affinity, I think that's had about 40,000 views. Just by comparison, the deep dive on data merge has had about 2.5. I notice when I look at my stats that let's say it's going south, not north. You can expect that when a new application comes out. So I would say that was an outlier, and I would look at the rest of the videos, and it's hard to predict, other than asking people what they want, it's hard to predict which ones take off and which ones don't. Many years ago, I did a session and it was called Microsoft Office for Savvy Mac Users. And the principle of the demonstration was, don't buy a single license, buy this specific version. And you will be able to install it on your iPad, your Mac, your Windows machine, next door's cat. You can install it anywhere you like, and it's a lot cheaper. And that video took off. But the thing was, when you looked at the stats, the likes and the dislikes, it was virtually 50-50. A lot of people must have been watching it thinking I was going to teach them how to use the application. No, that wasn't the point of the video. So sometimes it's hard to predict what works and what doesn't work. Generally speaking, no, it is not working in the way that one would like it to work. Let's just say that. But we're heading to 50,000. So if we can get to 50,000, we're doing well, aren't we? I don't know what more I could do to get more people to watch it. I guess that's up to you guys to let your friends know. Right, what else?
That's it. Although SFN reminded me that you were going to show regex snippets.
Right, okay, let me go and show you what they look like. I've only just created this, so let me get this up.
Oh, there is another one. The question's just come in.
Okay, get that while I sort the regex thing out.
Want to read it out?
Yeah.
Okay. It is from Leah Omi Tadel Fatusin.
Well done.
Hope I got that right. How is the embedded file similar to a symbol, meaning if you change one, all change? Is that the way to address it?
A symbol is very similar. It's the only difference is it's an embedded file. And in a symbol, if memory serves, you can't have an embedded file in a symbol. You certainly can't have a linked file in it. I don't think you can have an embedded one in it. So the functionality is very similar. Which one you would choose would just depend on your circumstances. That if you wanted different colours or something like that in the same, other than that shape, maybe a symbol would work better, or just do what I did, which is just embed a different copy. Very, very similar. It's more personal preferences as to which to use. What on earth did I call this file? I'm trying to open this file that I created, and I know what it started with, which was the word base, which is grand. But I'm loathed if I can remember what the second word is, so let me have a look. Code library. Oh, well, why didn't you show me that then? Crying out loud. Right, okay. I've literally only just started doing this the other day. So I am trying to get this out into its own window. There we go, just a second. Right, okay. So this is what I've got. This is Obsidian. As you can see, it says code base. So Obsidian supports something called bases. And a base is a database of pages in your Obsidian vault. If we go and we do all, you can see everything that I've got in here. So I created these the other day. This is removing text between brackets. This is removing manual numbers. This is empty lines. These are lines starting with numbers and so forth. Right, what I've done, these are just pages. In fact, they're in Markdown. So if I were to show you by right-clicking on that and saying Reveal in Finder, you would find this. I would open that up, and that is what that looks like. Now, that is much more advanced Markdown, but it's still Markdown. If you look at the name of the file, it's got an MD extension. It is just a Markdown file. Right, but obviously in here, we're using Obsidian to view it. And this enables me to have a file with the instructions in for all of these. Because it's a base, I can filter it in certain ways. So one of these is for CSS. All of the others are for regex. You'll notice that I was working with regex. So I filtered it for regex. There are 4 entries there, but just a minute, Elaine, there are 5 here. So why, when I filtered for regex, did I only get 4? That would be hoisted by my own petard. I clearly haven't in here. Let me bring the right-hand panel in, which I can't do. Can I, crying out loud? Can I turn it on up here instead? Yes and no. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Right, I want to see the right hand of this, but I can't see it. So let me just go in here and have a look at it. Right, this bit at the top is what tells it it's regex. So that one knows it's regex. Have a look in here. That one knows it's regex. One of them, oh, it'd be that one, doesn't know it's regex. Right, that is how I tell it what language it is. So I would just copy that. Go back in here, find the one that had it missing, which was this one. No, it wasn't. It was that one, wasn't it? I would just say, here you go, it's regex. When I go back into here and filter for that, we should have 5. Right. What this then looks like is I just click it and it says what it's for, what the code is, what the explanation is, and detail. Steps to use that in Sublime Text. Let's have a look at the one with numbers. Did I create the bold one? Not sure I did. That one changes asterisks to dashes. And it's just a set of instructions. Now, many, many years ago, you used to be able, even on Windows, I think, for me, would have been 20 years ago this year, I switched. But even on Windows, I had a code base. You could buy an application that was a little database for your code. When I moved to a Mac, I must have been through at least 8 to 10 different applications. And the problem is, no one wants to pay for them. So they're there 1 minute and the next minute they're deprecated. One thing I wanted to do was create my code base, which is what you're looking at now, in Evernote. Evernote didn't support code blocks. What we're looking at here, these are code blocks. So I can put code in there. So I decided in the end, as the last one got pensioned off, do you know what? Just make it in Obsidian. Obsidian supports everything I need it to do. And even though these, I mean, I could use these regex snippets anywhere. But obviously, I use Affinity a lot, and I explain it a lot in Affinity. So I created this, and that way, if I'm making a manual or a set of instructions for how to convert the text, I just copy that lot and paste it. And that's the instruction. It also helps me when I'm thinking, what was the syntax for that? And literally, it's so simple to create something in here. So what I don't have is headers. So I would create new, and I would say regex, and I would say headings in Affinity. Right, you'll notice that it already has a type of code, and it has a language of regex. That's because I'm in the regex mode, and then I would put that in there. So what do I search for? That gives me code. So I can open it up and I can start typing. What do I search for if I want to change a level 6 heading? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, space. Don't need any of those, right? And a space at the end. And I represent that with a section key. So that is what I search for. At this point, I can open this up. Right, so I would start putting headings in here. So my search string would be that. I could spell, and I'd put some kind of heading on that, right? And I would replace with, and then I put some code, and what I'm replacing with is, in this case, heading 6. And I would repeat that down the page with this is a 5, this is a 4, right through to 1. And then put the rest in. So I also don't have one in here for bold, but it would be relatively straightforward. So regex. Convert. I don't think I can put stars in there. So convert to bold. That's just a file name. That adds it in here. I go into it and then I put what you would put. Now, what would you put if you wanted to convert that? What's the search string to convert to bold? This would be your search for, or your find. This would be your replace. And there is a replace on this one. So I'm just putting 2 code blocks in, ready. I will then go and find it. So in my text processing, which I have in here, there's the bold. That is what the find is. So I'm copying it, paste it into there. That's what you would search for. And what you would replace it with is the $sign and 1. And now it's in my code database. So that is what my code database looks like. If some of these were Affinity only, if some of my regexes weren't appropriate for Affinity, then I could add Affinity as a supportive application. So your database that you create in Obsidian is completely extensible, depending on how you want to work with it. So I have CSS, I have HTML, I have regex. We'd have VBA, wouldn't we? PHP, and various other languages. But if I wanted a view in here that was just my Affinity stuff, I could do that. So hopefully that will help.
Says, are you working on Obsidian right now?
That is Obsidian, yes. That is my real code database that you are looking at. It's my real Obsidian. I have a demo Obsidian, but that's the real one.
That's it.
Okay, we've got all of the questions. That means I can get back in.
We can wrap up and eat
the sausage rolls. I need to. Oh, the smell. The smell is gorgeous, Mike. I'm pondering which. I'm mentally sorting an order out here for eating them, you know. Well, hopefully you have all enjoyed that. Hopefully you will be with us next week.
Hopefully you vicariously enjoyed the sausage roll.
And hopefully you vicariously enjoyed the sausage rolls. But right. Oh no, hang on. SFN is saying mine doesn't look anything like that, and the new button. Oh, and I have 2 brains. I do. Yeah, my second brain is in Obsidian. You know, and I've just seen. I'd only said to Mike a couple of weeks ago, there hasn't been much in the way of PKM, which is personal knowledge management apps, new since Tana. And I did try Tana, but it's like, oh, it's online only and it doesn't work on mobile. And, you know, I haven't got the time. So I stuck with Obsidian. And there's a new boy in town, a new toy to play with. And I looked at it and I thought, no, can't be bothered. Obsidian just works. So that's why all my stuff is in there. Poor Mike. Mike's had enough. Not my Mike. I've moved to regex and Obsidian, and you now need a rest. It's not for everybody, but most people will ask questions, and the answer can be quite technical. You think it's an easy question, but it's something that the application doesn't do. I don't just want to leave it at, well, it can't do it, if there's another way to do it, but the other way to do it might be a little bit more advanced. So that's why I answer. That's why we have the Q&A. And if you want the answers to those questions, then you can get them. But other than that, we'll head off.
Is there an emoji to put in the comments this week?
There is an emoji. It's the hot dog. Remember? It's the hot dog. I did mention it. Have you forgotten?
Johnny's just asked.
There you go. It's the hot dog. What I can show you is one more thing, which somebody mentioned to me this week. And I thought that's a very, very good point. Right? If you're on a computer, how do you put that in? So it's easy on mobile, but how, if you're on a computer, do you do that? Well, if you're on a Mac, you can use Command, Control, and Spacebar. And that pops up, and you can choose from there. So if we want a hot dog, we just choose it and press Enter. We now have a hot dog. If you have Raycast, you can emoji search, which gives you a better interface. But same principle. Search for hot dog, insert a hot dog. If you are on Windows, it is Windows key, and the full stop is what we would say in the UK, or the period key, as you would say in the US. So if you're on Windows, you can do exactly the same thing on your computer. You just need a different shortcut key. So again, on the Mac, it is Control, Command, Spacebar. On Windows, it is Windows key and period key. And you are good to go. Oh, apparently Joho's saying Windows and V as well. It was a full stop, I got told.
Yes, I've always used a full stop.
There you go. Oh, Renee, Renee didn't know that in Raycast. It's a built-in feature. You can do it in one of 2 ways. So you can either bring up Raycast and type emoji, which is search emoji and symbols, or you should be able to see from that, if I come out of it, when I start typing emoji, I have a shortcut key. And the shortcut key for me is the Mac shortcut key, but I've added in option. So it's the 3 modifier keys on the left-hand side of the screen for me, which means I don't even need to see Raycast. I just do that, and there they are. Why would you use Raycast rather than the built-in one? Well, you can see at the top, you've got pinned options. So my pinned options at the top, I've got, and you can search, and you've got all little groups here that you can look into. And you can paste to what's active, and you've got all of these options in here where you can use this frequently used, you can go straight to them. Just gives you a whole range of extra features. And it's a little bit bigger on the old eyes as well, isn't it? But that is what you can do. Were you about to ask a question, Mike?
No, I was about to say Windows V. It's the extended clipboard, so Joho's just corrected himself.
Yeah, I thought it was a full stop. It's a full stop or period key. Right, so that is how you get your emoji in there. Other than that, I will say goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
And we will both see you next time. Stay safe, guys.